Hi guys, this is a video for Chapter 2, Lesson 5, titled Dividing Integers. So you can take out your study guide and we'll take a look at it. On this, we're going to take a look at dividing integers. So the cool thing is, when we're dividing numbers with negatives, it's actually, we get to follow the same rule as when we multiply integers, when we multiply negative numbers. So it's exactly the same rule. So let's review a little bit. When we multiply numbers that have pairs of negatives, so if there's two negatives being multiplied, remember we think of these two negatives coming together and making that positive. And so our answer is positive, right? A positive 4. So we're going to multiply like normal and the answer is positive. If we have an odd amount of negatives, and think of it, this little negative has no other negative to join together to turn it into a positive. And so the answer remains negative. All right, so it's the same with division. When we're dividing, we get to divide like normal. And if there are two negatives, then the answer becomes positive. So we're going to divide, and that becomes 2. If there's one negative, then the answer is negative. Now, sometimes with division, we write it as a fraction. Remember, we talked about that in the past. So we could also look at this as -6 divided by 3, and that would be -2. Or up here, we could look at this as -6 over -3, and see how there's two negatives here? They pair up and make a positive, so my answer is positive. All right, so let's take a look at your study guide and we'll do some practices here. Go ahead and do 1 through 6. I'm going to pause the video here and work it out myself, and then do 1 through 6, and we can check answers in a second. Okay, let's take a look at how you did. So you can pause the video and check your answers. Remember, when there's just one negative, the answer stays negative. If there's two negatives, they come together and make it positive. All right, let's do 13 through 18. So, and on the bottom, there's some fractions included in here, but remember, it's the same thing as dividing. So 13 would be -12. 14 would be -20. 15 would be +10. 16 would be -14. 17 would be -9. And 18 would be +6. Oops. Okay, so those are the answers there. And really all this, you're just doing it like normal and applying the rules. So you can check your work and see if you've gotten the right thing. And let's take a look at the next page. On the next page, we are combining addition and division. So the topic here is looking at finding the average, or what we call the mean. So think of the mean and the average are the same thing. So to find the average, let's see if you can remember, how would we find the average? So to find the average, we add all the amounts that we're looking at and divide it by the number of items that there are in a set. So if I were looking for, let's look at number 1, looking for the average of low temperatures in degrees Fahrenheit for 1 week. And so for example, we've recorded the temperatures every day for 1 week. And this is our list here. First day is -3, then it's 5 degrees, -9 degrees, 2 degrees, 6 degrees, -11 degrees, and -4 degrees. So there's 7 temperatures that we've recorded, and we want to find the average temperature for that week. So we would add up all these amounts and then divide it by the amount of numbers in that set. So there's 7 numbers, we're going to divide it by 7. So one way to write this out is we can add everything up, and I'm going to put my negatives in parentheses. So I'd recommend that you do the same thing. Put your negatives in parentheses so that doesn't get mixed up with your operation sign. Okay, so we're testing our memory to see if we remember the rules for addition. Now, when I add all this up, I could put all this in parentheses and then divide by 7. But another way to write this out is to put that all over 7. And so when we put it all over 7, that just means add all this up and then divide it by 7. So my recommendation to you is to group all the negatives together and add those first. So I've got -3, -9, -11, and -4. I'm going to add all that together. And I think -3 plus -9 is -12. -12 plus -11 is -23. And then plus -4 is -27. So that's -27 plus, now I'm going to group all my positives together. So remember, when you add numbers with the same sign, your answer is going to be the same sign as what your numbers were. So if I'm adding positives, when I add them up, my answer is going to be positive. So 5 plus 6 plus 2, that becomes 13, positive 13. So it's -27 plus 13. Now I'm going to show all my work. I'm going to bring everything back together. I'm simplifying what I've done here. So I have -27 plus 13 divided by 7. And I don't have that much room here. That's why it's so squished. But ideally, I'd like you to put this underneath. Show each step, especially on your homework. Write the problem out, show the next step underneath, and then the answer underneath, okay? So I'm going to combine this. -27 plus 13 is -14. I'm going to bring that division, divide by 7 over. -14 divided by 7 is -2. So this is my answer here. Look, I had quite a few steps that I had to do. So make sure you show all your work on your homework. I don't want to just see this number on as your answer. That doesn't really help me with knowing the process of what you did. Okay, so the answer is -2, which means the average temperature, the mean temperature, like the question asked here, is -2. Okay, number 2, we've got some big numbers. So let's read what this says. The last 6 entries in Miss Cottle's checkbook ledger shows both deposits and withdrawals. Miss Cottle wrote down $100, -$20, -$35, $250, -$150, and -$85. What is the mean dollar amount for these entries? So when we see these negatives, that means a withdrawal. And then when it's positive, we see that's a deposit in her account. So to find the mean dollar amount, that's the average, we need to add it all up and divide by the amount of entries there are. And there are, like it was told to us at the beginning, there's 6 entries. So we're going to divide it by 6. So 100 plus -20 plus -35 plus 250 plus -150 plus -85. All that divided by 6. Now, if I were you, I would probably do this on a piece of paper that's separate from this because it's really squished over here, and it really isn't ideal when we have to squish all our work together. So remember, my recommendation is to combine all your negatives together, add those up first, and then combine all your positives and add all those up first. So we're going to add it's 250 there. Okay, so we're going to add our positives and add our negatives. So 100 plus 250 is 350. And then -20 plus -35 plus -150 plus -85. What is that? See if you can figure that out before I put it down. -290. and all that divided by 6. So now when I'm adding two numbers of opposite signs, I have to subtract and keep the sign of the bigger number. So we're applying the rules of addition when it comes to adding negatives. So when I add this up, my bigger number is 350, so I should subtract, and when I subtract it, it's 60. I'm going to keep the sign of my bigger number, so it's positive 60 divided by 6, and the answer is 10. So the mean dollar amount in her account would be $10. All right, I'm going to let you guys do 3, 4, and 5 on your own. And then I'm going to work this out. I'm going to pause it, and you guys check your answers when you're done. Okay, let's see how you did. So looking at it, number 3, the answer is -1. Now, I noticed a lot of people in the past have responded and said 0 for this one. They did all the work right, but when they worked through -5 divided by 5, they wrote 0 as the amount. Think of a number divided by itself is always 1, right? And so since we have a negative here, the answer will be negative. So it's -1. Number 4, we're going to add everything up and divide by 7. And this one doesn't come out to be a whole number when you divide it. So 39 divided by 7, not a pretty number. I can either leave a remainder when I do my long division and write it as a decimal, or I can write it as a fraction. I've got 4 out of 7 left over. So it's really, I mean, the answer is about, 5.5 miles-ish, not quite 5.5, but close. And then number 5, notice they didn't just tell you what was positive, what was negative. They used words that describe that, right? Ascending means going up, so it's positive. Descending means going down, so it's negative. So as I read this, descends, anytime it says descends a certain amount, it's negative. So when I add all this up, I think I have 5 numbers. I'm going to divide by 5, and it's 65 plus -20 divided by 5, and that's 45 divided by 5. So the answer is 9. Okay. All right, that's all I have for you guys. This really, it just takes practice. If you feel like you need more practice as you're doing this, especially with the finding the average, that kind of stuff is adding a lot of rules, bringing it into one thing. Go on the Khan Academy site that's on RenWeb. Type in the class code, work through some of the assignments on there, and kind of just let that information sink in a little bit. Okay, I'll see you guys next time.